or Artley, was it Bob? Yeah. That is Worthington, Minnesota, by the way.
Yep. Okay. So you were right about that one. I won't go back to that one. You're right about that one too. Good. Sorry, I think you were going to make another comment about this one. I want to.
No, I was going to say rather than being so much as a judgment on Reagan and Gorbachev, I think this kind of just an illustration of the success of. Did they have a summit in 1985? They're staying on the summit of Maui.
Oh yes. And I think that, again, maybe that is the easiest, most straightforward way of interpreting this. But it raises an interesting question as I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Kristen, as Kristen mentioned, as you continue to look at it, can you read something into the fact that only Reagan seems to be saying it? And again, you may be absolutely right that this is what Rosen intended it to be. And it's a very valid interpretation. But perhaps there are, in many of these, maybe there's more than one interpretation that one might reach. And I think maybe the key is the extent to which you or me or students can root their readings in the information of the time. Knowing that there was a summit in 1985 is key in all of this. You know. Well, let me just move on, because this is a different summit. This is the one in Reykjavik, and this has, unfortunately, in some respects, of course, far too much contemporary accuracy. Except this is not Iceland being blown up by Star Wars, but being blown up by nature. This is the meeting where Reagan offers to share Star Wars technology, but will not back down. Makes it makes it clear to Gorbachev that the United States will proceed. This is not a bargaining chip. This is off the table when it comes to any negotiation. And Gorbachev insists that they take Star Wars, SDI, that the United States simply stop work on SDI, and Reagan stalks out of the meeting. Pretty clearly, this is negative towards Reagan, isn't it? Star Wars destroys the summit, destroys the opportunity to advance the cause of peace. Let me just move ahead here, because this is another one on SDI, but we get a very different perspective now, don't we? Now, maybe you'd argue that Gorbachev doesn't come off looking real good in this either. Actually, maybe this particular cartoon gets too close to home for many of us who raise children. Right? But here, I think Keefe is arguing that SDI is an illusion. Right? Bryce goes back to the idea again that SDI is not a realistic proposal. Right? It's just an illusion. But by insisting on it, Reagan alienates Gorbachev, who's convinced he can really see this thing. He's scared of it. And, interesting. Again, this now takes us back in a different direction, right? So now we see both of them in I think a more positive light, right? And emerging from this this bomb in 1987, things seem to be moving in a positive direction as we move on with the summits that happen. And then I just want to end on this one. So Brian, I'm coming to a close here because I think this is a very intriguing. in 1983 at the Evangelicals Conference when he uses the term evil empire to describe the Soviet Union. The caveman with the club, right? Nukem. Homo evil empirus reganus. 1988, 5 years later. It's the last summit. Reagan goes to Moscow. And he's headed to the Bolshoi. Wow. He's dressed, right? He's not dressed too nattily, but he's dressed something more than an animal skin. And now this is Homo summitus, Reaganus in 1988. May I suggest that there is behind the humor here an interpretation that takes us back to where I started a couple of hours ago. Try this on for size. To argue Reagan's evolution in an important way actually fits, I think, with Herring's interpretation. Now, maybe you'd argue the other way around for John and his guys. But here's why I might make an argument for this. This cartoon suggests to me, just make up a response. This cartoon suggests to me that Reagan had to undergo some fundamental change in order to become the guy going to the Bolshoi. That all of the rhetoric about the evil empire was not just strategy, was not just purposefulness, was not something intentional. This is what the guy believed. And it was only after he underwent an enormous change that we find the Reagan of the summit going to the Bolshoi. That work? Maybe you could argue, along with Gaddis, maybe you'd say that in fact this seems to indicate that Reagan was always capable of becoming the guy going to the Bolshoi. And that the evil empire was all an act. I guess that wouldn't be my initial response, but it's a possibility. And again, the idea of taking material like this and exploring it for its meaning or meanings, even better, and seeing how the material fits into interpretations of the past, I think becomes a fascinating possibility. And perhaps talk with Brian, maybe you've thought of some other ways of using this or approaching this period of time, and I'm more than happy to sit back there and listen to what you've come up with. Thanks so much for allowing me to be part of this and to make this presentation. It was an awful lot of fun putting it together, and I wish you the best with the rest of your summer, now that you're just about to complete this this summer institute. Okay? Thanks a lot, folks.
Yeah, let's
Thank you.
just I'll give you a minute to stretch your legs before we go into brainstorming.